Hello there and welcome to ADIPEC, The Wrap. Here we are, day 3, and it's so exciting to be back with you. We've had 3 very, very busy days, really content rich, and the networking, the people that were here. I mean, it's I have two of them I managed to hold on to for the evening, but it has been an incredibly busy couple of days here, and we've managed to get through to day 3 and so much to talk about. So first, let me quickly introduce you to my panel. Hanna is back with us, of course, with the World Energy Council. It's great to have Arthur back, and we're joined with Barrow from IHS. So Kurt, so lovely to see you. Arthur, I want to just start with you. A lot of talk about investment today, and in fact we've had talk about investment pretty much every day. Yep. But I think there was a big focus on it today at many panels, and also ESG really up there as a top priority. Tell me your takeaway on that.
Well, I think by the time we get to day 3, we're in the kind of reality of moving to action. And if we're to move to action, then investment obviously is critical in every aspect of the energy value chain and across the ecosystem. So there was the cry for investment, the cry that we need more investment within the hydrocarbon industry, within oil and gas specifically. And there was also the recognition of value and shareholder value that can be created through that investment as well. So there was an awful lot today about people putting forward the case for investment to attract money into the industry that will be required as we manage the energy transition over the next 10 years.
And Kurt, I mean, it's no surprise. I mean, I think investment is at the very heart of everything that always has to be done in oil and gas. But again, you know, it's probably more the crucial time than anything else in terms of that need for investment, and almost a 2-tier investment as well.
Sure, yeah, it's massive, right? The amount of investment we're going to have to make in a brand new, in a lot of cases, brand new infrastructure, right? In a brand new set of energy supply, right? Because we've got to transition, to the low carbon, and that's going to take a lot of investment. I think ESG and investment go hand in hand now, right? If you talk to the financial community, they're viewing all their investments through the ESG lens, right? So it's critical, right, the investment, but it's got to be under the ESG portfolio.
And again, Arthur, I mean, I'm sure the panels that you were listening in on as well, is ESG essential? I think it's at the heart of what everybody is doing now, and everybody is putting it front and center. I mean, did you get that feeling that people are completely focused, committed, and they're doing the right thing when it comes to, I think, getting projects investment ready, so to speak?
Well, I think ESG now is the critical hurdle that you need to get over to access investment. And I think this is the difference that's, versus, let's say, 5 or 6 years ago. And I think the other aspect is that there are challenges, though, with ESG. So as good as the industry has been to respond to an ESG agenda, unfortunately, one of the things that's happened in the investment community is that ESG sometimes is an agenda for exclusion. In other words, just by saying that you work in fossil fuels or hydrocarbons means that you are now excluded from investment opportunities going forward. And what the industry needs to be doing is to demonstrate they are responsible ESG custodians of that capital, and to convince the investment community that they too should have access to this. And I think the key thing was that exclusion is a really bad thing for our transition.
And again, I think the challenges that we have at the moment, I mean, there are a lot. And again, I think some of the hurdles that we need to look at. One of the things I feel is, there's a bit more openness than what you talked about. We don't have that, I suppose, there might have been, let's say, a bit more defensive-ness in the industry before, and I think that's gone.
Sure, yeah, no, and I think the industry is always wanting to engage, right? I think the policymakers and the financial communities are starting to realize that, we need the industry to do this, right? And I think that's why conferences like this are so key, because at the end of the day, we need a bunch of technology development, right? And so I was just kind of struck by the sessions, right, where there's really a pretty positive attitude, right? And a lot of things on the technology side that's going to help us, get there.
Arthur, talk to me a little bit about, I think another area that came up too was the circular economy. And this was in a few different sessions today. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think this is all part of the transition. This is all part of our journey. So society at large is embracing basically the circular economy. Not everywhere, not in all economies, not in any great depth, but it is a development that is absolutely now part of the consumer psyche, and as a result of that, that's pushing its way back into the chemical industry, and as a result of that, that's pushing itself back into oil and gas extraction and the production of that. And so everyone now has to have a circular economy strategy, and that is now coming through. And what we saw today with the likes of OMV and Borealis and some other organizations are those organizations that have really taken the circular economy to the next level. Still an awful lot more to be done, still more investment needed into it, but I think, basically they have taken a lead, and it's great to see the industry move in that direction.
And I had a panel today too, and we had Nova Chemicals, Borealis, Total Energies, and again the circular economy, really talking about the great work they've done there. And again talking about plastics. It became just the topic, But that circular economy almost, I think the opportunities, the business opportunities that sit within there as well. Yeah. When we look down the road, this is all about business opportunities, and when business opportunities are good, everyone's going to come on board. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree, right? I think, again, the technology is being developed and the business models are being proven out. We need to scale those, right? The amount of plastic we recycle today is not large, but I think, I agree, they need a circular economy strategy along with a net zero strategy, and it really comes back a lot to carbon, right? An efficient use of carbon. If you can recycle that versus producing new, then you get a credit for it in the new system.
There were so many things I think that we talked about today, and surprise, surprise, hydrogen was back on the agenda. Hydrogen is just on the agenda. Arthur, what do you think in terms of the panels you talked to? I think it fitted into just about everything. I don't know if we've had a panel that didn't mention hydrogen.
No, and I think we said this last night as well, which is that, compared with 2 years ago, hydrogen's come from nowhere. Now, any of us who've been in the industry, we've been producing hydrogen, ammonia, et cetera, for an awful long time. But now we are talking about it as a future fuel, but with investment now sitting behind it. We're also hearing plans from the majors, from the IOCs and the NOCs, about what they are doing to move to hydrogen, whether that's blue or whether ultimately that's green. I think there are challenges nevertheless, but the reality is that when we think about the energy mix in the future, the next 10 years plus, hydrogen is going to play an important part of that, either in heavy transportation, either in acting as storage, either as acting as the fuel that we'll need in those difficult to decarbonize industries like cement and also obviously steel production. So it's there, it's a reality, the investment is slowly flowing in there. What we need now is regulation, and what we need now are industrial clusters to sit around this, because transportation of hydrogen still remains a bit of a challenge.
And I found from so many people talking about it too, and particularly, in this industry, this is, an oil and gas conference. It's an energy conference, yes, but it comes, I think, from a different base sometimes. And I think so many people were looking at, in our big rush to get to green, the danger is, we're going to miss a lot to do. And I think it was the CEO of Treanor who just said, let's not allow great to get in the way of good, because we really have to take steps on this. And when you talk to your clients, and when we look at the hydrogen economy, do you see that has to be in different moves rather? Can we just go to green? I don't get the feeling we can.
Yeah, I think there's some exciting developments in green, and a lot of I think positive thoughts on how we can get the green costs down. But the blue is what we produce today, right? We need to put the carbon capture behind that, and I think the business model of exporting large quantities of hydrogen. I mean, Europe's talking about needing to import hydrogen, right? So that could come from North Africa, that could come from the Middle East, right? The business model behind that is something we've got to work out, along with the investment, along with the technological development here in hydrogen. I think when you speak hydrogen too, it's also the liquid fuels, the ammonia and so forth, that you can transport and actually use in a more effective way, right?
Now, I know you also did, Kurt, some of the offshore marine.
Yep.
And in one of my panels today too, of course, hydrogen did come up too as a possible future fuel. And looking at, the developments there, Again, I think it's a dynamic time for the industry because there's no set future fuel right now.
Yep.
So the marine sector, I think, has a lot of work to do, but people see it as big opportunities as well. What were your takeaways from your marine session?
Yeah, so it was a really interesting session, right? And I think you're absolutely right. The path for some of those heavy industries that Arthur was mentioning are less certain than, say, the light duty vehicle sector, right? The light duty vehicle sector, it's batteries, right? The batteries is the primary, but in the heavy side, it was a really interesting session because it was a mix of the ship owners and operators and fuels, as well as some of the other new technologies like wind augmented power, and so there's some really interesting developments there, but a couple different pathways we might follow.
And indeed, technology was obviously top of the agenda in every session as well. But cybersecurity, I think, Arthur, was also, very much focused on today too. And I know you were looking at that.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things has been the acceleration of digital within the industry as a consequence of the pandemic. So I think, we were moving 2 years ago, a lot of digital here, but still taking some time. But the fact that we had to move to remote working, the fact that we had to move to remote operations literally overnight or within a matter of weeks, I think has absolutely galvanized the industry with regard to digital transformation, as broad and as unclear sometimes that phrase can be. But the consequence of that, obviously, is that it brings with it the threat of cybersecurity, because it is here, it's pervasive, it isn't going to go away. But the session that I was in, which I found fascinating, was that 70% of cybersecurity is human related. In other words, it's to deal with phishing attacks through email, etc., etc. And so sometimes we think of cybersecurity as what are we going to do from a technology point of view, but actually it's actually the education and putting into place the protocols on the human side, because that's the way in which attackers are getting into our system, both on an operations point of view, which is obviously dangerous for us as we think about some of the operations that we run. So that human side, what do we need to do on that? I thought that was quite fascinating today.
And again, technology is going to be something that's going to be part and parcel of this discussion going forward. We can't talk about the development of fuels, the development of energy without technology.
Yeah, technology, right? And the industry has a big role to play, right? I think you talk about hydrogen, right? As I look at in some of our work, some of the hydrogen targets that the governments are putting out, many of those haven't really engaged with industry yet, right? So there's really a lot of work to be done, a lot of optimism, but we've got work to do to make this transition happen.
And again, just picking up on what Arthur said, and just before we wrap up, I do want to talk about, just talent in the industry. I think this is something everybody was talking about today. So, Kurt, I think it's a big concern for everybody, making sure they have the right talent, retaining the talent, because I think a lot of good talent that maybe is being, groomed, and the talent that's there in maybe Asia, they're going to be in demand in other countries as well. So what's the big talent, I suppose, challenge at the minute, and where do you see this that companies really need to pay attention to?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the start of the conversation around ESG, right? That our industry has maybe not the best image, with the young generation, and it's a competitive marketplace out there. Technology firms and others are, got some exciting careers. So it's really putting out, get the message out. It's an exciting industry. It's a clean industry. It's going to be a lower carbon industry going forward. There's some really interesting challenges. So it's a great career opportunity for across different parts of the labor supply. But it's really retaining and attracting those younger generation, right, to the energy industry.
So I'm going to leave you with the closing word, Arthur. And I mean, particularly coming back to that talent, because you were, looking at those sessions. And again, even if the session wasn't about talent, that's something that's been brought up as well, because it's a challenge.
It has, and the industry recognizes it has a talent to attract. And two things came out today. One was trust, in terms of what we need to do, whether it's an ESG agenda or our commitments to reducing emissions. We need to build trust with a new generation of individuals that will work because they don't trust us. That's the elephant in the room. We are seen as the bad side of the equation, not the good side, and yet we want to be part of the solution. We need to build that trust. The second aspect that came through was the challenge. Actually, when you put the challenge of what this industry needs to go through, it's a fantastic challenge from an emissions point of view, a sustainability point of view, a technical point of view. These are complex issues that the PhDs and others want to get involved in, but we need to position both trust and challenge in a very different way, I believe, with that future talent pool.
And I do think one thing I heard from so many people is, that willingness and just saying we are going to be part of the solution. I think and people just saying, we have the resources, we have the brain power, we have the capability, and that is our target. We want to be there with you. And I think the industry has to. We all have to move together on that. We're going to wrap this up. This has been, as I said, a very, very busy day 3. So it's great to be back here at ADIPEC 2021. And it really, really has been action-packed and very, very busy over the last couple of days. So I really want to thank Arthur Hanna, thank you so much for being with us, and Kurt Barrow also from IHS. It's been great to have your input as always. It's lovely to wrap up the day and bring you a little bit of a look back. And of course, looking forward to, we still have another day to go, so make sure you keep an eye on what's happening here. And of course, check on our social handles. We've lots of updates going out there, and we will continue to do that. So stay in touch with ADIPEC.